You are now live on Channel 8 and YouTube.
Forgot to pull up my opening.
Mike, I almost thought you froze. I was like, what? Did I freeze?
Good evening. The time is now 6:30 p.m. I'm Chairman Mike Curry, and I'd like to call the Select Board Business Meeting to order on this 9th day of March 2022. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Before we begin, I'd like to state for the record that not only are we being streamed live on TCTV Cable Station 8 and our YouTube web platform, but this evening's recording will be available for later viewing on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe. We do have a quorum this evening. Good evening, Julie, Tim, and we have Terry remote on our Zoom machine. As always, our agenda for this evening has been set no later than 48 hours out by law, and it has been publicly available or is publicly available at the official source for town information, templetonma.gov. Although I have the discretion as chairperson to add and remove from the agenda, it has been set to allow for time, personnel resources, and public awareness. I reserve the right to move our agenda items around to best fit our guests and business. Thanks. We are in person, so I don't have to read our Zoom rules of the road, and public participation is always available. First, we're going to do some housekeeping, and then we'll have citizen input. First thing we've got on our agenda is approval of meeting minutes from 23rd of February 2022. One page up.
That was nice to see, by the way, one page. Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the meeting minutes of 2/23/22 as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion, observations, or amendments on those minutes? Okay, hearing none. On the motion to accept the meeting minutes of the 23rd of February 2022 as presented, how do you vote? Tim?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Thank you very much. Okay, we're moving into citizen input. Citizen input. Does anyone have anything to say? Absolutely. Sir?
Thanks. I live on Brooks Road, in Templeton. Been a Templeton resident for going on 40 years.
What's your name, sir?
Joe Emma.
Joe Ellen.
The reason I came in tonight is the road is in terrible, terrible condition. I got a new truck and I wrecked a tire on it the other day, just hitting a pothole. I realize there's a lot of potholes everywhere this time of year. There's been a lot of new houses built on Brooks Road and around the corner on Lord Road, all on wetlands. The fill was brought in so they could pretend that it perked.
Mm-hmm.
And that water goes somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't disappear. Where it's going is on the sides and in the road. And there's, in addition, there's springs under that road. So, you know, we're all paying a lot more property taxes. I pay a lot of excise taxes because I'm a car nut. And I'm just wondering, is there any plans to do anything to that road? I mean, it's to the point from my house to the end, you really got to go like 3 miles an hour and you got to go on both sides of the road because
Okay.
It's horrible.
Okay. Mr. Emma, correct?
Yes,
EMMA?
yes.
Okay. I don't have an answer prepared for you right now. I'm not, thinking of all of the roads in town. We have a street study that I frequently will refer to, and I know that's online as well, if you wanted to take a look at what does the town already know about Brooks Road. Usually in these situations during citizen input, if it's something that we're not prepared to speak, like, oh, I know all about that, or let me get back to you, give me a little bit. Town administrators taking notes, probably the same notes that I've got, to be able to say, what kind of assessment can we give you? What if we have a crystal ball in terms of projects that are out there? I'm not sure if you're familiar with Chapter 90. It's money that the state gives communities to supplement how they work on their roads and infrastructure.
What about the excise taxes? I mean, does the town actually use all of that money for what excise tax are
So-
intended for?
Yes, so when the revenue comes into the town, but everyone's got a balance sheet, right? Towns, businesses, families have balance sheets. What do you bring in? What are your expenses? So we go through this every year to be able to say, what are our revenues? Dr. Kazan is going to talk to us tonight about the school, and he's going to say, here's my income, here are the outlays.
Right.
That money does get spent. Does it get spent all? No, we make contributions to stabilization funds. You can call them I don't want to say rainy day funds, because I don't think it's the same that the state has. You hear Governor Baker talk about rainy day funds. We do make contributions for savings so that we can take care of problems as they arise, usually lack of revenue. So the money does get used. Quite honestly, there's not enough of it. That sounds horrible, saying to a room full of taxpayers, what do you mean there's not enough? I bleed so the town can have its stuff. I hear you, but specifically about Brooks, let's figure out what the situation is, and let me get you an answer on what can possibly be done.
Yeah.
Especially if we, like I said, Chapter 90, the DPW director, Bob Sozik, he has the ability to use our street study and match the criticality of some of these roadways. What you're presenting to me is, it's a dismal affair down there.
Yeah, I mean, the highway department keeps putting cold patch in, and I keep going out in the road in front of my house and shoveling it up into wheelbarrows, because it just, well, it just comes right out of the hole.
Right, I understand what you're saying.
And then when you drive a vehicle through it,
Yep.
it just sticks to your car. It just doesn't work.
Right.
And
How
that,
long ago did you do that? Because we've got a hot box in town since.
how long ago did I?
Yeah, is this a
Sweep
normal
up.
occurrence?
It's a regular
Okay.
occurrence for me,
Okay.
because otherwise I get it stuck all over the car. It just doesn't stay. I mean, everybody knows that about cold patch.
Yep.
If you look at where that road is split, it's tar on one side, this much higher than the other side. I mean,
Right.
the road is completely destroyed.
Right,
And now if you go, I live at 171, so I'm about 3/4 of the way down the street if you're coming from Baldwinville Road.
okay,
Up until you get to around the next house before mine, the road is pretty decent. It looks like they may have done that part over several years ago or something. From there forward, let's say it's, I don't know, 300 or 400 yards, the road's almost non-existent.
right,
One of my neighbors was telling me the other day, he goes, we'd be better off with a dirt road,
right,
because it's that bad.
right.
So at least I would like to see the town, if there are, I had heard rumors there were plans to redo that road,
Right,
and they were waiting for all the houses. I don't know if that's true. All the houses have been built. Now there's a
Right.
lot more people on that street paying taxes and driving on it.
Right.
So
okay.
anyway,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Julie, go ahead.
May I make a statement? I actually just went down your road yesterday. Almost lost a tire. Probably hit the same pothole, unfortunately. And due to all the new construction, I think that just really put a damper on a certain section of the road. And I agree with you that the other half of the road isn't that bad. You wouldn't realize it till you get there and you're literally going over
Yeah. And
to
there's
the
no
opposite
drainage.
side. I know that we can reach out to our
Hang on,
highway
sorry.
superintendent. I have the utmost of respect for him. He has gone above and beyond in the last couple of years as far as trying to get a road list out, which is big with a lot of people in town. They want to be able to go on the website like Mike offered you. Go and see where Brooks Road is because it's on a list. It truly is. And we can actually ask them when the weather gets a little bit better. They did recently get the hot mix, which is hopefully going to help out as well. So in
The
the
hot mix is
meantime,
better, but the problem is
You
you have
need
to
to-
coat that whole
Yeah,
road.
right, yeah.
right, I'm sure,
And
yeah,
Unless you grind that section of the road out and, do it properly, because there's no place for the water to go.
right, and there's probably gonna be a drainage issue as well.
It just makes me laugh because you bring in fill so you can legally build a house, but that water doesn't go up to heaven.
Mhm.
Right.
It's gotta go somewhere, and it's going in the road, which has no drain.
Right. So we're gonna do a bunch of collection. If you, I can give you a card with my email address if you want, you come to the board. So if you want an answer from the board, or if you feel more comfortable calling our, okay. Look at that, Johnny on the spot, or Holly on the spot.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, did you see my, did you see my hand up?
I was just telling them where we're at. Selectwoman Griffiths, go ahead.
So we just got an email from our town administrator, Mr. Lamontagne, and maybe he would like to address, he's looking into how to formalize a way to get your, if you wreck your tire on a pothole, a way to formalize getting reimbursed, and he might want to speak to that, Adam.
It's gonna be on the meeting later.
Yeah, I don't,
I don't think we need it. Adam, if you're not prepared to speak to it.
Oh, that's fine. Right now, we're,
make no mistake, that's not why I'm here. I already got my tire fixed or replaced. I'm not looking to get money back for my tire. I just want to see the road get fixed.
Okay. Well, I
mentioned the
just wanted to say it was in process.
well, we do have a goal that we're looking at implementing a program in the future. So that's what Terry was mentioning.
What the tire costs, you can put that money towards fixing.
Thank you for your generosity. We appreciate that.
All right,
Thanks, Adam.
thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arnold. Any more public input, citizen input? Okay, hearing done. I was trying to, usually I give the COVID count right now, but I know we're trending way down. It's the school has followed the mask policy. The town has followed. It's basically changed the mask policy. So fingers crossed, right, Chris?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right. There's no more citizen input. Let's jump into new business. We did have some introductions of new employees, but because of the weather or otherwise, I think we're going to postpone that, Holly and Adam.
And we will have more folks, more than that. Yep.
More employees.
So, more employees, but also the employees here that we're gonna move to the next meeting.
Okay. And we have no appointments. So without any further delay, I'd like to give the floor to the Narragansett Regional School District Superintendent, Dr. Chris Casner.
Thank you very much. Lori Geister, certainly the brains of the operation, and couldn't do it without her. First off, it's great to see everybody in person. It's great to be in person. We've to talk about that just real brief. Last week, I believe we had 10 total cases, and I think in the school, and I believe we only had 3 identified today, because on Wednesdays we upload to the state. So we seem to be going in the right direction. That's exactly the direction we want to go in. But we keep an eye on it. I want to thank for the invitation to talk about the budget. Many years, well, I would say about 3 years ago, we really endeavored to start earlier to make sure that a certified budget reached your desk in time to put on warrants. And, we've actually found it to be quite helpful to start the process earlier. And again, we will continue to do that because it helps with the communication. And of course, it's important for both towns to know what their monies are, what it's going to cost. Again, there's a 27, I think, slide presentation. We're certainly not going to go through all 27 slides. But I think it's interesting to say that when we started off at the beginning, back in November, December, January, started to do this, it looked as bleak as it is. It always does. We looked at, we're going to get the minimum amount of $38,000 over last year, because again, we were held harmless. The same story. When we started looking at everything, we noticed that well, prior to January 26th, we thought we were going to have to use every dime of ESSER monies, ESSER 3, which is in its last year, to just balance the budget. Never mind, use those for positions to help, offset learning loss, et cetera. It was a reality. Then Adam gave us a call and said, "Oh my God, you must be so excited." And I said, "We don't believe it." And we didn't. Anne Marie and I did not believe it. This is not a joke. We both saw that Chapter 70 had gone up by close to $700,000. And we both called our respective groups and said, "I think you made a mistake." We literally didn't report it out because I said, there's just no way. But no, alas, it was true. The formula did in fact change. Now, dubiously though, we've increased that amount of money because they went back to an older formula that they used to use to identify students in poverty. And they went back to what the FY17 model. When they did that, it jumped us from category 6 to category 8, which is really the percentage of students whom are low income. And when they did that, when that happened, it increased, of course, the monies that the district received. And in combination, we also increased 41 total students. So again, without going too deep into the weeds, we were held harmless, meaning that we were, according to the state, receiving more money than we should per pupil. Mm-hmm. We now have that we have more kids, and they changed the formula. So all at once, we started to, I guess in a way, the way I look at it is we were able to, when the state increases through its Chapter 7 formula, we'll actually start to see that more. Now, it's the first year in about 8, I believe, or 9, probably maybe 9, that we're not held harmless. That we're actually whole. So in other words, for every student we have, we're going to receive that 13,000 some change, which was not the case prior. Okay, in those the years before, and that's of course problematic. That was a huge deal. We had talked a lot about ARPA and these type of monies, and trying to maybe recoup the monies that ESSER 2 had done for the minimum local contribution. The very first things I said to Adam was that we didn't need it, because once we figured out that that the budget was going to be the way it was going to be, it only made sense, and it was only, again, fair to take that request away from both towns, because without that, at that point in time, we weren't sure that we were going to really be able to fill a lot of the classrooms. So that's good news. That's great news, quite frankly. And hopefully we can keep that moving forward. We have seen an increase in students as even through COVID. We know that they move in. We know that, we know where they are. And as they come back into the building or come back into school, that we should see hopefully more increases as we go forward. So again, that is that's a huge piece. It allows us to keep moving forward educationally. Even through COVID, we kept going as fast as we could forward in terms of getting our college ready program. So our dual enrollment, so we can be in high school and going to the Mount or Fitchburg State and receiver to agree. That's a big deal academically. Also, our Project Lead the Way programming, which is mostly robotics, mathematics, etc. That was a huge initiative when we started way back. That was able to continue. So in the end, we were able to stave off a really a huge reduction in terms of staff, and especially those staff positions that have been created through the ESSER 3 to help with learning loss. Now, with all that said, we've always known that ESSER 3 positions were going to have to tail off. There was never a time that we thought that all the positions we had, say, this FY, were going to be with us next FY, because the money really cascades away eventually. And we know that. We put those positions, we put the money where we were supposed to. We put them in positions that identified or helped with areas in reading, mathematics, just really skill-based type of programs, because we know that that's where our kiddos were deficit ultimately from having 18 months or more with remote learning. So
Make it part of your core.
right. So we expanded that. So what we did is we expanded, through the Unified Arts program, basically a reading unified art. So kids who may have, had some gaps in reading, we'll rotate through that. At the elementary, we put a lot of services down there because that's where, again, if you were kindergarten on March 13th, you came back as a second grader. So if you were live on Friday, March 13th, that day, if you were home, if you stayed home or if you stayed remote, you came back as a second grader. That is, in the world of education,
Sounds bizarre.
that is just an incredible amount of time that live instruction isn't happening now. Did we do Zoom? And of course we did all of those things, but as we all know, it's just not the same when you're in classroom. So we have certainly loaded up down there because we know that that's where the foundation is. So we've done that. We did not buy glitzy things. We didn't do all kinds of things you read about in the newspaper. We used ESSER 2 for our HVAC system to continue to improve that at the middle and high school. So ultimately, in the last 2 years, we've used every dime to either help with COVID protocols, whatever that may be, or to put services in front of kids that were certainly deficit only because of COVID. So again, that was and with our change in our Chapter 7 formula, that is going to help us. Another benefit, you've heard me say this as many times as I've ever presented, the fact that our entire health insurance was put into school choice at some point in time. It was not only problematic, it's scary. That school choice is a fluid number.
Yeah.
And I realized that at some point it was done as a cost savings measure, but if you don't keep that differential, you have an entire health, your health insurance in there. We were able to move out $200,000 of that $500,000 in rate total normally. No, sorry. Yeah. So 5 is still in it, correct? It's still to that point. Yeah.
Slated for next year.
Yeah, and so we're going to slowly move that back into the general side, as long as our Chapter 70 stays, because that is a liability waiting to happen. And we've talked about this quite a bit, so I don't want to overstate it. At the same time, what we of course tried to do is uphold our end of the bargain when it comes to, well, in this case, Templeton, but both towns in terms of the increase. 2.5 has been elusive over a period of time. I think we got to 2 or a little over 3, I think, last year. But we were able to hit the 2.5 increase only for Templeton this year. In great part to the Chapter 70 change, the formula change, quite frankly.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because we would always, as long as the state was holding up its end of the bargain in terms of Chapter 70. And by the way, transportation, which again is another promise not fulfilled often by the state, because that bears to the town, as you know. Again, we don't have much. We don't have much say over that. It's really about
One of the biggest things that when
Yeah.
we had our legislative delegation in here to include Rep. Zlotnick.
Yep.
We asked again their continued support for the transportation. They were very happy that they got in the low 80%.
right.
I think it was like 82, the final was like 81 or 82%. So they're already, they know that we're banging on their door
Yeah.
on our behalf.
And truly, it's on all of our behalfs. It's one of the largest, expenditures that most districts have. So, we do the same as well. 100 is 100%, although I think they've only done it once in the entire history, if that. 80, 90% is great, but more consistency is really what we call for, because it's hard. It's a moving number every year, right? Is it 80? Is it 70? Is it 60? What percentage is going to go towards transportation? So I think that is, I think that's time well spent when we do have the ear of our representatives.
Yep.
Someone asked me last town meeting, or actually maybe 2 town meetings ago, about, the percent increases overall to the towns. And one of the slides, again, of the many, it's interesting that it's from FY19. I'll just quickly, go down, but the FY19 was 4.7, FY20, we never ever want to talk about FY20 again, but that was 5.5. FY21 was 3.4, 3.3, and this year's 2.5. Again, that's the Templeton's assessment. We've worked hard to try to, I'll call it cut costs, but actually spend smarter every single year. Sometimes that's easier at times than other years. A lot of those costs, just like the towns, are out of our hands. I would say that one of the largest issue or costs that we have is special education. That is a cost that literally comes, it can change literally overnight, depending on if a child moves in to the district who requires services that well beyond our capability in any public schools capability. It is not a new thing any longer. If it's a residential based program, to spend one child to cost close to $250,000.
Right.
That's a year. And so that is something that,
The regular, normally, would you say 13,000?
yeah, so right. So our
Right.
per pupil expenditure, if you think, right, by per pupil. So, and no one is begrudging services such as that you're talking
Yeah.
about, and
It's
no one
needed.
ever has. It's those unknowns. And so we work hard with our partners and of course, creating programs internally through grants to try to keep kids in our district, not necessarily for money, folks, because it's important to keep Templeton kids in Templeton, Phillipston kids in Phillipston. So, but alongside that, I always make sure that we have generally kept our budget increases very low over the years during that time. And then again, something fluctuates. So it's harder some years than others. Ultimately, what I'll leave off, because we've presented this 2 or 3 times, and I've said the same things over and over again. And thank you for those who pay attention, come every time to listen. I do. I appreciate all of it. Is that next year ESSER 3 monies are gone. And in some ways, hallelujah, because to keep track of all the grant monies is tough. But along with that goes the all of those programs and positions. I say this just so everyone remembers. In FY20, we cut a position at every level. Remember, K through 4 at the time. And we did that mid-year because that was all the meetings and everybody remembers. Well, that's also the same year that COVID happened and we all went, remote. Through the ESSER 2s and 3s, they gave us money to help with class sizes, though we were able to hire positions back. I just say all the time that those positions came back because of COVID. As of the end of next year, meaning next school year, those positions are not in the general fund. They're not. They will be back down to 4 teachers per grade level, K through 4. Why do I say that? Because I think that we've it's looked very different, the last couple in a lot of ways. But in terms of right now, you wouldn't notice any difference because there are 5 teachers at every grade level. That's part of ESSER 3. But when those monies go away, those positions go away. And then we'll have to look at what our class sizes will be, et cetera. Again, I mentioned it because I always want to make sure people understand why, right? It wouldn't be, it's just part of the normal plan. They're just not part of the general fund at this point in time, right? So again, I've given a very quick, brush of that, of the budget. We've received more phone calls happily about the number that was presented to Templeton we ever have. And so we finally did it in a sense about getting 2.5. And I appreciate the emails and the phone calls about that. It is important to work together. We understand that everyone has priorities and they're all very, very important. And you can only spend $1 once. And we all understand that. I think we've had good communication very early on. I think that's helped out quite a bit, quite frankly.
Took many years to get there,
I think it has.
but once it got there, I think it's
Yeah,
been
and it's okay.
pretty positive all the way around,
I think so. I'd like to think so.
communication wise.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I want to think so. We've worked hard, everybody, and it's been very good in terms of expectations and just the communication part of it. Thank you, Julie. I think that's important to say, right? It certainly was not good years ago.
So I noticed you had a slide, it was your ESSER 2 and 3 rollover slide.
Yep.
That is to say the 2 money that is rolling into 3 and what you're able to use over this next year.
Exactly.
After that, there's no rollover.
There really isn't.
It goes away.
It goes away.
So when you say that policy wise for where the source of that money, I see you, Terry, I'll get you on the next. Policy wise from the source of the money, there's some incongruities. That's my $50 word for tonight. Between what the municipality has for the flexibility. We got until 27 for how they keep making up the rules for the money.
December 26 on the ARPA fund.
Right.
So that the ESSERs are gone
Yeah.
as far as the
So-
town is concerned.
Right.
I'm wondering what we could do to try and so if you're looking at ESSER 3 and done. And it just doesn't marry up with any of the other policy that's out there. So the municipal policy isn't lining up with the education sector.
I think it's a great point. And just to go back into a little bit.
And you're gonna feel it.
And we're going to feel it, but before they changed chapter 70, what I was asking for was that offset that never happened
Yeah.
because the state said yes, then no. I just needed that money to keep, at the very minimum, I needed to keep those extra teachers at the elementary because that's where we're really focusing any and all interventions that we have. That's the important part. Well,
Right.
when they changed or I told the story already. I said, look, I think we can do this without.
Yeah.
And so, because we understand that this money is important for the municipality, but also know that the ARPA list that was asked and we put through, you'll notice with the exception of that, they were all capital projects.
Yeah.
Because,
Following you.
yeah, because I want to make sure that the money, if it ever does come to fruition, is that they go to capital projects in order to then save money for the membership of both towns. So in other words, if,
Yeah.
the HVAC. So eventually I come to both towns and go, look,
Yeah.
I've got to fix the HVAC. We got to go out for a bond and both towns have to do this and do that. It saves money in a way for right through the
Yeah.
towns. So that's why those projects were earmarked that way. We didn't put positions in there. We did not on purpose because eventually the money does go away. And we just want to make sure that we're not dependent on that type of, really generosity necessarily for a key position. Right.
And I think it's going to take some time. I mean, if we've got more time to work on strategies, and I agree over the past couple of years, the different committees that we figured out to say, what can we do here? Even if you wind up hiring somebody that says, look, here's my situation. How do I keep 5 instead of 4?
Right.
You know what I mean? So the amount of time that you can, if there are, and, you know, there are those that are gonna be watching you saying, there's Curry again, using money that we don't have, that we can't rely on. We gotta go back to basics or otherwise. Yeah, I get that. We're gonna be able to do that. But there are strategies, and we've got the time on the municipal side for what we're trying to do. You're trying to keep kids in classrooms with the appropriate amount of, and I want to help try and figure that out. So if there's a way to be able to say, is there a couple more Band-Aids, or, to extend the time to be able to say, I'm going to keep 5 until I figure out when all of the safety nets have been pulled away, that we're in a much better condition to be able to weather that.
I agree.
Adam's going to say 2.5 or whatever, we come up with, and you're going to say, yeah, I was expecting 10. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes, right.
Because that's what I need to be able to provide the services. You've got all these different, the great job that you and your team does is it gives us a lot of metrics that we can hear. When you say 30, everyone in the room should know what 30 means to this conversation. If you say 31, we're in tough shape, and parents are going to go. Your phone's not going to ring in a good way.
But I think that what it's done is we've slowed it down a bit. So now
Okay.
we're not constantly in crisis mode.
Yeah.
And I think that what we've really, again, Chapter 70 change really allowed us to kind of go back and go, okay, we made a financial decision to take the money out of, because that is a smart decision to do. But it gives us time to sit there and go, okay, if all of it goes away, what would be your priority? Well, the elementary would. I can tell you right now that given the numbers that we have of kids in this district right now, as they continue to rise, and everyone knows
Your
that,
marketing is,
we want to keep those
definitely
classes.
marketing, yeah.
Sure.
The ideas, yeah.
Yeah, but it gives us time to think about that, right? So
Right.
now I have next year to go, okay, all right, so what do we got here? And what can we do, and what should we do?
Yeah.
Just one quick example of that. We have so many children at the pre-K level right now because they're all coming back to school. And there's ratios with special needs kids and non-special needs kids. The district or the towns or the district are always still responsible for any child who needs special needs services, regardless if we have a pre-K program or not. We're looking into creating another pre-K classroom, but being self-sustaining, meaning through tuitions. Thank you. Through tuitions, because otherwise those kids would have to be transported, maybe potentially have received services elsewhere, and you're going to be spending that money regardless. So first off, we want them in our district. They're our kids. I don't want to send them anywhere, and we want them with us through the duration. So again, we're thinking a little bit better. We're thinking smarter about things, and we're doing we're talking to a lot of different people all of the time.
That's good.
So appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
No.
Terry.
Yeah.
Terry, I talked over you on the last one. Go ahead.
No, that's okay, because most of my question was kind of answered, but I did want to say congratulations on the job that you're doing and the fact that you recognize that you can't sustain the insurance on the, school choice. But I was also, the question I really initially had was, what's the impact of the desk spacing? I know you still need an extra teacher, but when do desks go? Are they still spaced, and when do they go back to?
We do not have any spacing mandates or requirements. They are back just like before. We have kept our cafeterias kind of in the same configuration. We just before we got too crazy and took down all the cafeteria tables, we wanted to see the first couple of weeks to see how things went. Well, so far it's been going fantastic, right? So we'll back that out, so our gyms can actually be gyms and not cafetoriums or cafe gyms or whatever the case is. But we'll slowly eke our way back out of that. But we're honestly, if you were to walk in there today into any of the schools, it would honestly be status quo. You wouldn't really, other than the cafeteria being a little bit more spaced out, we are back to normal spacing and stuff, pre-COVID.
So mainly what I'm hearing is we need to keep that extra teacher to keep the class sizes down.
Yeah, and that's more academic. So we're utilizing, again, this ESSER 3 monies to keep those extra teacher per grade K through 5. That's academically based. That's what ESSER 3 said. Look, do what you can, either class sizes or what. That definitely is a model that we're utilizing this next school year, right? Next year. But those monies will then go away and we'll be back to the general fund monies, and that really only allows 4 per grade. And that really goes back to FY20. And again, I say that just as for a frame of reference, because it just doesn't, we've so much has happened since then,
It does bear repeating that this week, 2 years ago, was our last week of normal.
Yeah.
We went through all the roles and the changes and curveballs, and we're not going to come out of it overnight.
No,
It takes time to build back to where we were.
it absolutely is. And we're going to do it cautiously, but it's where the weather gets better, it's going to, I know it's just going to get even better and better. So we're thinking positive about that.
I want to think positive too, but when, I've been listening to the news about the increase in fuel and stuff, are you guys anticipating that for your budget too?
Well, let me give you an example. Yesterday, a paper salesman called, and we usually buy paper, well, back in the day, close to $20 a case. Ish, right? That's normal, but was normal. They said, look, I can sell you $35 a case. We called around. It was much higher everywhere else. We locked in. They said, well, we can only give you 2 pallets of paper at 35. But we can't really quote you because the prices are changing every minute. What did it end up being?
Well, back yesterday afternoon, it was $49.99 a case.
A case.
It was 35 in the morning.
We should have ordered it in the morning, I guess.
Well, we tried. They wouldn't give us the,
Pallets.
they wouldn't sell us the
Sorry,
other
but
pallets at
I'm
that
like,
price.
whoa, boy.
Because they knew it was going up. That's the kind of, and again, it's happening to
They
all of
wouldn't
us.
sell it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's everywhere.
no budget
I'm-
would be able,
I'm
sustain.
asking here. I'm asking because I care.
No, I appreciate it. Here's the good news. That wood chip boiler, and I don't want to start a craziness here, but that is going to earn its weight in gold at this point because fuel, and I'm thinking of some comments I received when I first got here. That'll be the cheapest way to heat the building, the way that crude oil is going up and propane. So, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, right? So, we're happy that we have the wood boiler and all of that, but the prices are skyrocketing in every single corner of everybody's world.
I didn't know that the Secretary of State is already working on price gouging for at least the fuel sector. It'll be interesting to see if his office or the Attorney General winds up moving on that, because that's
Some of that is just
double
sure.
from what you paid, and even a little bit less than that.
Yep.
Any other
Make sure you give Ron Amadon a tour of the wood chip boiler, the wood burner.
Come on up.
Any other questions for Dr. Kevin? Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Emery. Thank you very much for coming, and we appreciate the slide deck. I did show a couple of those slides, so people will be able to take pictures,
It's on our website.
screenshot,
It's
it'll
on
be
our
on
website,
social
too.
media in about, if it's not our.
That's right. It's on our website. So go up on our website. You don't even have to take a picture. You can just
Great.
look at it there. Thank you very
And
much. for your
drive
time.
safe, please.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
I did hear a plow go by while we were
I
talking.
did.
so-
Yeah, it's still
Thank you.
coming.
Thanks,
you.
Anne Marie. Thanks, Anne Marie. Drive safe.
Take care.
Okay, next item. So you're after the next item. Is that, we're good? Okay. Discussion related to the general stabilization policy recommended by advisory. Does anyone, no one's here from advisory, or you're gonna brief that? Okay.
We received this from the advisory committee, I guess sometime before the newer board. I guess they were putting together policies in the advisory committee, but they felt that that policy should be decided by the select board. It's a select board set policy.
Okay.
And basically the whole thing that they sent over here was in our current policy, we have that target up to 8% like that we adopted for the general stabilization. I think they would like to see us go upwards to 10%.
Right.
So I think they just want us to take that into consideration when we look at evaluating our deposits into our reserve funds. If we could work to get there, but I think what we covered at the state of the town, that we're looking upwards of having for 1.5, roughly 1.5
Yeah.
million in OpEx stabilization.
I appreciate that they're doing, the dirty work to figure out what, they're scenario driven. I can, because it's in the packet, I want to share the screen just to give people an idea of what they had shared with us. So up on the screen right now is the table that they offered and gave us a couple of scenarios. Here's if you put in this amount, here's if you put in that amount, and what you could realize based on that. And then they make a final recommendation of, we think it should be, what's that?
1.8 million of 10%.
Right, so if we're currently putting in, can't remember,
Our target's 8%.
8%, our target is 8%. So they just gave us a couple scenarios there. Down at the bottom, they said, here's your if you put in 6.7, then the realized stabilization fund balance would be 1.2. And you see on the screen, it's the current status is 968, but I think, Adam, you're projected to be over $1 million by annual town meeting.
We have roughly 1.5 million.
Okay. So this is just discussion wise, not for action, but I definitely appreciate the fact that they're sitting there. They're pulling out the stubby pencils and, the math paper.
They're brainstorming.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really are.
So that we wind up having a little bit more of a conversation when we decide, hey, should we amend this? And like you said, when we mentioned during the state of the town, that we're in the right direction, we're making more contributions because we understand that we don't look at it as a need right now. We're not like, oh crap, we have to up what we're putting in there. We understand to be fiscally healthy, that's the right thing to do.
And I think they're relatively, or for the most part, complimentary of the efforts the town has made in the past years. So I think it's good dialogue to have is we're focused on how much we can put into the stabilization accounts, where there was a time where we really didn't have much of anything. I think it was not less than $100,000 at one point.
Right.
So we've come a long way.
Yep.
It's a good discussion. I mean, at least advisory is looking at it. They're updating us because we set policy and they just want us to keep an
You
eye
took the
on it.
words out of my mouth. They're supporting us in our own policy where we haven't always had that synergy. So it's really nice to see that they're offering us some courses of action to take, and that, what those numbers could actually be realized.
And not only that, but at the annual town meeting, we're also going to have an infrastructure stabilization account. So we'll have to reevaluate the policies at that point. Town meeting votes for that account. So we'll probably circle back to that sometime thereafter to review those policies.
Okay. Terry, did you have your hand up? No? Okay. Anything else on stabilization policy?
I'm grateful for it.
I agree, Terry. All right, let's move on to our next item, which is possible action related to decision on Lions Club events as town sponsored events. How are you, Sue?
I'm well, how are you?
Excellent. We got your,
Ladies Select Board, Holly and Adam,
we got your letter.
I see that, always right on the spot.
I'll turn the floor over to you.
Okay, realized when we started conversations with Holly regarding our Easter egg hunt, which we were not able to hold last year because of COVID, that there was a new process requiring filling out an application for use of town property for an event. And then when I went through started filling it out, realized that there was a permit and fee requirements. We apparently would fall under the nonprofit organization, which would be $25 a day and $100 security deposit. All our, that would really be a detriment to our events and trying to, you know, every dime we earn from donations and from our the golf tournament, the tree selling goes right back into the community by virtue of the things, the bullets that I listed, the scholarship fund, you know, all the different things that we sponsor and that we do. So that charging us that kind of money would take away from the money that we're able to
Right.
spend for the community. It just, for instance, if the tree selling, that's like 2 to 3 weeks, $25 a day would be a big chunk of money. So we're just asking the town to consider waiving that fee for our organization. I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, I definitely, your letter was well written because that's exactly what it conveyed to, at least as I read it, that's what it conveyed to say, these fees don't work for an organization like us and what our mission is.
Right.
So thank you for being here and explaining that. Anyone? Oh, Holly, I know you wanted to speak to that too.
Yeah, I thought we should take it one step further and request that the board allow Jackie Prime as Community Services Director to sponsor the Lions Club's events as town sponsored. And that would allow for them to waive the fees. These events are usually for the town, for the kids anyway, and the funds are for that. And it would come through our office instead of going to the board, make it a little easier for them. And then we would also notify the board, of course. And then in talking to Jackie, she was in full support of that. And she suggested that there's 1 or 2 other entities that might fall under that umbrella as well. Narragansett Historical Society is another one. Everything they do is for the community. So if they were to have an event, same thing, to charge them.
Do you happen to know what type of organization Narragansett Historical Society is?
I believe they're a 501c3, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But there aren't a lot of others. It's not like they're going to keep coming out of the woodwork. We have
Right.
these couple that,
In my time at the board, it's not like we're overwhelmed with requests for town use.
right.
And I know that there's been some growing pains with this town, since we've signed this policy. I know there's been some growing pains with it. I
Right.
definitely acknowledge that. Anything else, Holly?
Yeah, well, just, I mean, the way we wrote the policy, we could have asked Jackie, will you support that you sponsor them? And we could have just done it and then notified the board, but we didn't want to, we wanted to have to make it clear and make sure the board was aware and agreed that we should have them be town sponsored.
We debated on this policy quite a bit. And I think it was good discussion. And what I'm zeroing in on is not a question of town sponsoring things, because to me, then that puts some subjectivity into it. Where there doesn't need to be subjectivity in a small town. You sponsored them, but not us. That would be the quote. What it's going to sound horrible to you at first, Sue, so strap in for a moment. I wouldn't advocate for waiving a specific organization. I don't think that's the right thing to do. Because it's a structural discussion of our mission statement talks to transparency and otherwise, and we want to make sure that we're equal opportunity for anyone that wants to use town property. And we've had discussions before about like the gazebo and stuff. And we've figured out ways to, we were really smart about it to say, we see adopt an island, adopt a section of a tree or a road. You see that all the time. It's a function of joining in with somebody to say, adopt the gazebo. If we write a policy like other communities have, you wind up having the flexibility to bring people in. In this case, I don't think exceptions need to be taken. I think we need to relook how we deal with mission-oriented organizations. And I, in full disclosure, I'm the treasurer of a 501c3 that operates here in town and that works with veterans. So I just want to make sure that I'm disclosing that, because I'm sure people are going to watch and say, you didn't, you needed to be able to do that. So I'm speaking after that disclosure to say a mission-oriented organization like the Lions, I think we need to relook the fee structure to be able to say, I know Jeff's not with us tonight, but I talked with him briefly about it. Just he and I spoke. His concern was, are you trying to make revenue from these, or is this a compensation of the use of the property? Are you just making money off people, or are you actually saying there's a cost associated with that? So I think those are the two things that I'd like to look at that would solve the Lions problem pretty quickly. But I think that would make our town use policy both more thought through and more flexible to organizations like the Lions to be able to say, you do work for the community. So you've seen the policy, right?
Yes.
So on page 2, it shows the structure of the fee schedule.
Yep.
I could give you examples for every single one of the, you got it right in front of you. I could give you examples of every single one of them. You fall under the nonprofit organization, right? As you had said. So I'd like to relook how we do that for nonprofit organizations. They're not trying to make money, if they're nonprofit. They're not trying to, the spirit of this was designed to encompass anyone that could come to us to use it. A wedding, a concert, anything like that. I think we just need to further define the mission-oriented ones, if that makes sense to the board. I see your hand is up, Terry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Sue,
I wholeheartedly agree, but I also have a suggestion too. I spoke with Mr. Graves on that, and it was something that
Graves.
another person had.
Which one?
Justice. I spoke to Justice, and someone else had told me before, like I was thinking, it was not a smooth transition with this policy, and some people were offended. So I do believe we need to re-examine it, so people aren't, so people feel better about the whole thing and the use of the property. But one of the things I think very strongly on is accountability. So if you're in a building and something happens, we know you are in there, and so that's one of the things I'd like to bring up when we revisit the policy. Is it's also to keep us informed who's in the senior center, all right, who took the cake out of the fridge? If that happened, I've known in the past that there's been people sharing buildings and things have gone missing. So, and it's, to me, that's part of it, is accountability and knowing who's using what, when, so that we can deal with the outcomes. If there's any emergencies, or if anything's missing, or if something gets damaged by accident and not reported, or reported, we're on the ball and we're on top of it. So it's not all just about money. I hope I'm making sense.
No, you are. Thank you. So Sue, I think we're moving in the right direction. I think that we see some flaws as they pertain to and I didn't mean to dump on town sponsored events. I just meant, I don't think that would be I don't think that it's going to be a fix for these types of situations. The town, town sponsored ones. It's all. They need to fit. And I think that there's a feeling for that. And that's why we gave the big guy over here the authority to be able to say, let me look at this one And he
Right.
puts the discretion on it to say, that's an appropriate town sponsored event. Not that, and not to say that, like, all of the events that I've seen have been great when they're trying to give back to the community. So I think we're headed in the right direction, Sue. But thank you for helping us identify something that the end result is not great for some of these organizations. You know, like the $25 a day for your
Right.
tree thing would be cost prohibitive. And it doesn't, it puts the town in it's not a good cooperative
Right.
relationship to
I
have.
mean, our Easter egg hunt is like all of a half an hour, if that. Really, literally, the kids get there at 10.
Yeah.
I mean, we're there about 8 o'clock, putting the eggs out. They get there at 10, by 10:15, they're gone.
Yep.
They're all picked up. They're coming to us with their little stickers if they get an egg that has a little sticker in it, getting their special prize, and they're out of there.
Yeah.
You know, the pumpkins, that's a little bit longer event, but it's basically those, the pumpkin patch, the haunted gazebo, and the Easter egg hunt, in the tree selling are
Yeah.
the major.
I love it all. Yeah.
Ones I can think of that are use of town property.
Yep.
So where do you want us to go from here?
So anything that we had set for this evening on a vote or otherwise, I don't think we need to vote on as it pertains to the Lions. The feedback that I'm giving you, and if the board agrees with me, is that I think we need to fine tune how, when I say, I don't want to shroud it, when I say mission focused organizations, I do mean nonprofit organizations, 501c3s, anyone that's going to come to us where there's already that declaration. Like, do they give you the sheet, the tax ID sheet to prove that they're a 501c3?
We haven't even got to that point yet.
Right.
Right, my only concern is
Again,
this
you
time.
know, in full disclosure, I'm the treasurer. I helped set the veterans one up. I know it's not like someone can come in and go, oh yeah, I'm nonprofit. There's a
Right.
certification for that. And
Right.
I was on the Lions webpage today. It's right there. You know, we are a 501c3. So I guess the feedback I'm giving to you, I think you're successful coming, because there were some specific motions. Because you had requested to be exempt from that. I don't think we need to do that. I think we just need to relook how we interact through this policy
Mhm.
with organizations like the Lions.
Okay,
Does that make sense to the rest of the board? That I think we need to have another conversation pretty soon about how we can possibly amend the policy.
I would agree with that. I just think we need to make that fairly quickly. Again, your next event is Easter egg hunt,
yeah, April
which
16th,
is knocking on
We need
your
to-
door, really, our door,
right?
right?
And we need to
So,
communicate with the school on that as well.
and you do communications with the school with
Right.
all of that, right? Because it's that, yeah.
And
So my only
you-
concern would be that. And I can say that I've done nonprofit as well, you know, been involved in a lot of that in the past. It took a long time to get this policy to where we are now. To sit back and relook and regroup with it. I just want it time frame wise, I'm concerned. So that we're not,
The policy,
if we think we
You
can
got
get
30
an
days.
answer,
I mean, we could waive.
we should be okay.
And
And
Does
again-
it go to Adam, or is the
One of
Easter
the-
egg hunt coming to us, or is it coming to you?
If it's town sponsored, you come with me. If it's not, it goes to you
It goes to us,
or the board.
the board.
And so what meeting would that come to?
It would be the April
Weeks.
13th meeting, right? Or no, excuse me, March 23rd meeting,
23rd.
March 23rd.
So that we can-
I thought Jackie could sign off.
No,
No. See, the town,
Jackie cannot
it's
sign
it's
off,
either town administrator
Or us.
or the board.
clearly cannot sign off on that.
We still, I mean, we have the flexibility, so if.
We have the
if
time,
Lions
that's
are
what I'm
gonna,
thinking.
if the Lions are gonna put in the application, and it's gonna go before the board, Did she already, when she files the application, is that when?
Did you
the
send that?
I
fee is
filled
paid?
out, yeah, I did
Is that
fill
when
out
the
the
fee is paid?
application.
Or is it when the application, or is it when it's granted?
It's when it's
That's when
granted.
it's granted. I did fill out the application and send it in.
So again, the two concerns that I have is that we need to relook at the fee structure for nonprofit organizations. I'd even go as far as to say is to zero that out. I'd like to go in that direction, but I also know that Jeff had a concern about the fee structure overall. Like, was it designed to be compensation to the town or revenue? And that's a tougher discussion, and I'd like him to be present for that. So to how to handle the near term, if we don't do anything tonight, just give me 2 seconds. If we do nothing tonight, Lions are gonna come back to us on the 23rd, and we're gonna vote on that application. At that time, because we know we're working on the town use policy, someone makes the motion to approve it and temporarily waive the fee until we figure it out. We make that decision, so it's not the impact. Although I don't think that $25 is gonna break the Lions either.
It
Right, I would
sets
vote-
precedent. though.
Yeah, but I would say the short term is fixable, but in the long term, I think we should need to relook at that and then also address the revenue question that Jeff had. That should sound okay to everybody.
We have the application here. Do you want to look at it tonight or not? You want to wait till the 23rd?
You've done it every year, right? No, I think you misunderstand what I'm saying.
Okay,
We're gonna change the policy. We're gonna have a discussion to change the policy based on how we believe this is mix matched for nonprofits. So we're headed in that direction. How it impacts you with that, we're not gonna be able to vote on that. Or what is she saying? Is she trying to, no, that needs to get processed through.
Yeah.
When it does
we need
come
do
to
that
us,
the
we
next
can
time.
actually just waive the fee.
okay,
Yeah, and we've done that before.
all right.
There's been precedent within this last year on doing that, or waive until such time that the board can make a decision on an amended town policy. Sorry, Adam, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, if from what I'm gathering, the board's looking at changing nonprofit organization to 0. So let's say March 23rd, the board were to change that no cost. The board wouldn't even have to vote to waive the fee, because if that, as
Right.
long as her agenda items after, excuse me, the Lions Club's agendas item is after the policy gets adopted, then the board wouldn't even have to vote to waive the fee if they adopt.
I think it
Updated
gives us a
policy.
chance to have a holistic discussion. We talked about it before. Definitely, if people can go back to their YouTubes and watch it. We had conversations about
Many
nonprofits.
conversations. yeah.
So as direct evidence of how it might harm and the unique, like I said, well-written, a unique way to be able to say, this is how it would harm the mission that we're trying to accomplish. Because, you could have 1 day or you could have a 2-week
Right.
event. So we need to be, we're now seeing the effects. I think we can have that discussion, but I know that Jeff also wanted to bring up another, just another shade of the discussion. And I want him to be able to do it, kind of give you the sneak preview of what he's concerned about, but I want him to be able to fully explain himself. So either way, I think we're headed in the right direction.
Could I ask a question on the site plan? I wasn't clear on what we would need to do for this type of an event. It says a site plan is required, yet,
I think it's like a sketch or something.
Yeah, that's one of those areas that it really depends on the event.
yeah, I
So
mean,
for-
an Easter egg hunt.
Right.
I mean,
Can't
it's
give
talking
the
about,
location of the eggs.
talking about setting
I know, that was my thought, all the little eggs.
talking about setting up,
Perimeter and say.
Yeah.
setting up barricades,
know where the
things like
big eggs
that,
are.
and I didn't think.
You
that
need to rope off your egg area. No, I'm just kidding.
I think it's just a site sketch.
Yeah,
It's a
a
site.
sketch or just put in there, the general vicinity of the
Okay.
Like
Like if you-
gazebo.
if
So
you
we
had-
just drew
if you
fire
were
stations
asking
here, the field is here, the egg is gonna be
A little,
here.
yeah, a little paper.
Just take
Paper
a
and pencil
picture,
sketch.
make a copy and
Oh, there you go.
paste it on.
I think
Oh, that's
This
nice.
is where this is the vicinity we're using. Poof.
Yeah.
Put it on your little.
High level.
Okay.
It's like if you were
Like, you
asking
know-
for a police detail. A sketch plan allows all the stakeholders to understand what you're trying to do.
Gotcha.
If
Okay.
you had a parking, they do the kite festival.
Mhm.
They have a parking. So we would, if we ask questions about parking, the site.
With the
is gonna show
perimeter.
Exactly.
Okay.
For that field.
Okay. And then I stopped at this point and didn't get a hold of CERT because I was like, well, let's just see where this is going before I contact the CERT director.
Okay.
Mike Dixon is on the CERT team and he's one of our lions and
Yeah.
he would be there anyways. So,
If either Brian or Mike are watching tonight, I think they're gonna understand where we're going.
okay. Yep. All righty. Okay, so we'll be back on the 23rd. Okay.
Look forward
Thank
to
you.
it.
Thank you very much.
We'll start praying now for good weather.
Old business on the next community then.
Old business on the next one. We'll-
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, just so they don't wind up waiting. We'll take a look at it. Okay,
Okay,
thank you, Sue.
thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
Sure.
All right, and the last item of new business is action related to revenue loss calculation reclass. Mr. Lamontagne.
This is more of a technical bill.
Be safe, Sue.
Thank you, you too.
Reclassifying it to the general fund budget. The half here was the ARPA funds don't allow for the auditor exemption. So therefore, we would need to reclassify it to the general fund. Because we classify it to that, then it'll be acceptable use of the auditor exemption through state law.
Well, that's an easy one. I move to rescind the vote of November 23rd, 2021 regarding the use of ARPA funds to pay for the auditor to determine revenue loss for the town and allow the administrator to reclass the expenditure to come out of the general fund.
Second,
Any discussion? Terry, are you good?
Just a quick note on this. This came about and Adam and I were on a state webinar from the IG's office. And we both heard the same thing. And as soon as that webinar ended, the phone was ringing. Did you just hear what I just heard? I said, yeah, we're gonna police ourselves. How do we word this? to Keep ourselves out of trouble and not have them go pay us back. But seriously, it was, again, the rules are changing almost by the day.
Crazy.
And just, we were both happened to be on the webinar. It's like, hey, I'm signing up for this. Yeah, I'm gonna be there. I'm glad we were because we would have missed this.
And there was what, 217 people, I believe?
Something like that, yeah. There were quite a few and they're rolling that seminar. There's a number of presentations. We just happened to tag that first one.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none on the motion to rescind the vote of November, the select board vote of November 23rd, 2021 regarding the use of ARPA funds to pay for the auditor to determine revenue loss for the town and allow the administrator to reclass the expenditure to come out of the general fund. How do you vote? Tim,
Yes.
Julie,
yes.
Terry,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Tim, for catching that. Okay, that brings us to the end of new business. Under old business, is there any update from the RAAC?
There is. The RAAC, as you're aware, has been an ongoing convoluted process. We're in month 18. None of us ever anticipated it running this long. There are a number of underlying issues that we still have not gotten to the table. We're having some challenges getting all of the players from the member communities to the meetings. Our team has been really good about being there. We're notifying when members won't be. We're not seeing quite so much from our co-member team from Phillipston, but I'm not going to get into the hows and whys.
Okay.
One of the things we did propose, and I entered it as a motion as we were winding down, we had a lot of crazy discussions on how they're going to look at replacing members if there's a resignation. And the current policy and the 2004 agreement, the school committee fills the vacancy. And what we're proposing is the community members of the school committee and the select board. There's a notification to the select board. And then those are the people who will make the determination to fill the vacancy. There was a lot of friction back and forth, and we're still working to hammer that out. We also entered a motion to suspend further RAAC meetings till we can form a 5-member subcommittee. Dr. Cassavant chimed in. We want to see 2 individuals from Templeton, 2 individuals from Phillipston, 1 member of the school committee, no more, because there are a bunch of other issues that are interfering that really are not related to the reorganization and the restructure of the agreement, but there are some other challenges being presented. So we want to clear the air, identify that, acknowledge it, but refocus and get the group back onto working the regional agreement as we originally were intended. And this has gone on for so long. Mr. LaMontagne has put us on the town's organizational chart, which I never would have anticipated. But we're there. So that's where we're at as of Monday night.
Thanks, Tim.
You're welcome.
Is there, I got a question for you. Is there still, have people dug in, you know, in the trenches on what the last approved regional agreement was? Have you moved beyond that, or is there still?
We're still playing with that. The 2004 agreement, although both towns accepted it, voted on it, got it through town meetings, for whatever reason, and again, I'm not slinging arrows, it never left the district office. It never got the commissioner's approval.
So you're dealing with the
That's it.
2004 version,
That
and what
is-
was the other version?
The other version, we went way back to 1977, which was prior to the School Reform Act, and a lot of the language changed and had to change by legislation. So,
Is
yeah,
there some way that someone can mediate that dispute?
That's what this 5-member,
Okay,
the small group.
that's gotta be mediated, because we have
It's
to
got
move
to.
forward with
It's got to.
the right understanding. The 1977 agreement, I can't even believe that people would want to go back in time to that when we have a completely valid and signed document from 2004. So if someone can mediate that, I would say that's a priority, because you know, it's like you're walking on eggshells, or you're walking on, you have no firm ground underneath your feet if you can't even agree on which document you're actually trying to amend.
One of the challenges we did identify, getting this RAAC together was a process that was initiated 2012, 2013 originally. It kind of fell by the wayside. Carter kicked it up in 2016. He asked for some info. It's taken us till the tail end of 2019 to bring it to fruition. But one of the items we did discuss as we were digging into the weeds and into the current language, there was a question was raised, do we want to look at a 5-year, a 10-year? I said, guys, based on what we're doing right now, we're shooting ourselves in the foot if we don't go to it once every 5 years.
Yeah.
And we just have to make a notification, put it in our agreement, because that's the document the district runs by. And it's going to fall back to the school committee that every 5 years, they need to form somebody to look this over, and it will trigger a potential next RAAC. Any other big changes, admission of a town, removal of a town, it's going to require this whole process to begin anyway. There will be an amendment to that agreement required. And again, that's governed by legislation.
Thanks, Tim.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, that's the end of old business. Let's move into board member and administrator comments. Terry, Julie, Tim? Julie,
I
go
just
ahead.
had one. I wanted to personally thank Mr. Sozak, Bob Sozak, for so quickly installing the lights at town office building in support of the Ukraine situation. So just a very big thank you to him. I did reach out after receiving several requests from town residents, and we now have lights that are the color of the Ukraine flag out front of our town building, as does Gardner and several other communities in Massachusetts. So once again, thank you, Bob. I appreciate that.
And Julie, I didn't have my documents to
Oh,
start the
that's-
meeting, so I was a little bit flustered in the beginning, but We had discussed before starting the meeting that we would have a brief moment of silence in solidarity with the pain and suffering that is going on in an overly aggressive and needless regional conflict in Ukraine. So if those people in the room and online and both the people watching would like to bow their heads for a moment of silence for the Ukrainian people. Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Mike.
Tim or Harry?
I yield the third.
Okay.
Thanks, Tim. Just one thing, the superintendent search committee for Monty Tech elected to hire Tom Brown, the principal of Monty Tech. He's now the superintendent.
Excellent. Now we know who to call for the certified number, right? Tim?
I think I've spoken enough, but thank you.
Folks, I just, I have one board member comments. We're coming up on 3 years in as being a select board member. And I just want to announce tonight that I do not plan to seek reelection. It's a very hard decision to make. I really like what I do, but it's a decision that I had to make personally and with my family. I'm a pretty busy guy. I love my town of Templeton, but 3 years of service has been excellent. I just do not choose to seek reelection at this time. And I wanted to make sure that I was saying that within the open window of February 22nd to March 23rd for people to take out papers and otherwise. And that's the right thing to do if you're going to run for this great board. Make sure you take out papers. Doing write-in campaigns is not as effective as people might think. So thank you. Got 2 more months of work to do. Very excited about that. But I just wanted to be able to make that announcement. Any other comments tonight? Go ahead.
I was disappointed to hear the news that just now that you're not seeking re-election. I think we've established a great relationship.
Mhm.
You've done a lot for the town, not only in your service here as chair of the select board, but on the advisory committee. And
I'm not going anywhere.
thank you for your service, and not only to your town, but to your country as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
But you'll be missed, and you still got a couple more months, so.
Yep. Everyone knows my email and telephone number. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. What do they say in the movie? I have served, I will be of service. Everyone's going to search for that quote now. John Wick.
Yep. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks. All right. If there are no other comments, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn the open meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Anything else? Going once, going twice? Okay, and the motion to adjourn, how do you vote, Tim?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
There she is. And I vote yes as well. Meeting is adjourned at